Can you speak a little bit about what sound art means to you?
Well, people debate the definition of sound art quite a lot. I'm not that concerned about definitions. To me, sound art is art that concerns hearing. And when I give talks about sound art, I'll often include works that actually have no sound at all, but hearing is an important element within them. So the sort of range of practice that could be included under sound art these days is so broad that the term doesn't mean a lot, except, as I say, that hearing is an important element.
Can you summarize the artwork wireframe for us?
Wireframe is a piece that kind of begins with an experiment in creating a literal sense of space using sound. So basically taking the idea from computer-aided drawings that an engineer or an architect might use, and trying to create a sort of full-sized equivalent of that using sound. Full size in the sense that it's, the scale is 1-to-1 rather than the kind of small scale that a computer drawing would be, and also something that people can then enter into, and it becomes something that surrounds them. So the piece begins with this attempt to try and define the shape of a space. In this case, the gallery here at Surrey Art Gallery. And so it starts with a kind of dotted line that traces out the shape of the room. And that dotted line kind of goes into each corner and up to the ceiling and across each wall. And that is often referred to as a wireframe in computer-aided drawing. So that kind of provides a consistent frame, in a sense, that runs through the piece. And once that is established, and I let that kind of establish itself so people entering the space get a sense of the size and shape of the room they're in, and then the walls are kind of rendered with sound, in a sense, so that they get a sense of first one wall, then another, and then the four walls are eventually fully rendered, and then the floor and the ceiling. And then beyond that, the piece kind of moves from almost a kind of dry, technical kind of exercise, in a sense, the way it starts. It becomes increasingly kind of, you might describe it as almost surreal, in that your sort of sense of the space you're in starts to change as the space is kind of populated by other sounds.
How can visitors best experience this artwork?
Well, the piece has to be experienced in complete darkness. I mean, the idea is that people entering the space have no idea of the size and shape of the room that they're entering, and so the only way they have to orient themselves and to sort of figure out the space they're standing in is to use their ears. And the best way really to do that within the space is to move around a bit, because and to kind of, if you turn your head, because we have ears on either side of our heads, that's how we tell what direction things are coming from, because the sound coming from over that side will take longer to reach this ear than it does to reach this ear, and the brain calculates all that and says, okay, that sound is coming from over there. So it's important, I think, that people don't go in and stay in one spot. Also, the best place to experience the kind of the sort of three-dimensionality of the piece is from the center of the room, but of course, when people enter, they won't know exactly where the center is, and that's hopefully where their ears come in, and they can kind of direct themselves or try and find the center of the room.
What inspired you to make this artwork?
The piece developed from some work I was doing on a residency in London. And during this residency, there were other people sort of working alongside me in the gallery, and some of those were graduate architecture students from the Architectural Association of Great Britain. And in kind of talking about the gallery spaces, one of them just quickly on his laptop did a quick CAD drawing of the space. And as soon as I saw that CAD drawing, I started to wonder if it would be possible to achieve the same kind of thing using sound to kind of give shape to a space. But as I said before, on a one-to-one scale, so that on a scale that you're actually within the rendering of the room. So that was kind of the initial idea and the initial kind of inspiration for it.
Could you talk a bit more about your approach to sight and context in this work?
This piece is quite unusual for me in that it's a very kind of inward-looking piece. It's very literally site-specific in that it couldn't exist anywhere else, either in terms of the sounds I've used, which I've created within the space and during the time that I've been here at the gallery, but also in terms of the dimensions of the space and what the piece is about, which is about the architectural shape of the room, the acoustic properties of the room. And it's also very much site-specific in that you couldn't take it, even if you took the 17 speakers and put them somewhere else, it wouldn't work. If the room wasn't exactly the same size and shape as that room, it wouldn't work. But further than that, it's site-specific in that the sounds that I use that kind of populate the piece after the kind of technical drawing is complete are sounds from the actual making of the piece. So the gallery preparators, who are the people who kind of prepare gallery spaces and install shows here. As I was starting to work with the piece, they were sort of busy installing the speakers and that kind of thing. And as I was thinking about what sounds to use on the piece, I started to record the work that they were doing, and that work became part of the piece itself.
The audience member's body and the movement of that body within the confines of the room seem to be an important aspect of the work. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I'm quite interested in how people behave in galleries. I think sound-based work kind of creates a context in which people move differently, behave differently in galleries. In this piece in particular, because it's in complete darkness, it's going to be interesting to see how people behave on the infrared cameras. The only other piece I've done in complete darkness, we had no infrared cameras, so I had no idea. I could only ask people, about their experience in the space. But so I think that's going to be interesting to see. But also, I think when people are using their ears to move through a space, at a gallery space, I think they behave differently. And I think it's quite unusual to see in galleries. I did a piece in London which was not in darkness, but it was a 24-channel piece, and people were, there were images from which sound was coming, and people were sort of commenting that when they came into the space, they'd see people sort of in unusual positions with their heads cocked, kind of listening, trying to figure out where sounds were coming from, or trying to listen more closely to particular sounds. So I think that's quite an unusual thing in galleries, and I think as sound art becomes more prevalent in gallery spaces, I think we'll start to notice that people behave a little differently from visually based work.